Welcome to RGBA, Colorful Tech News and Reviews. This is episode 83. My name is Alexandre Valère-Lagacé, and I'm joined by my co-host, Taleb Benard. All right, so the big news this week is that Apple basically did a little purchase. So they went on a shopping spree and they purchased a magazine subscription service called Texture. For those of you who never saw this software and service, it's basically, think of your good old dépanneur magazine stand, but inside an app. And most of those magazines are owned by the same companies. So there's only a few major companies with magazines, and basically they strike deals with those companies to offer a subscription, which is either monthly or yearly paid, to have access to one or many or all of their magazines on an iPad app, basically. And Apple, for some reasons that is still unknown to us, basically decided to buy this service outright. So they are saying that it's going to stay like this for now. So I don't think it's going to change overnight. It's probably going to stay the same service and stay the same price and everything for now. I don't know what's the plan. Do you have any idea where they're going with this acquisition?
No, it's like a Netflix, but for magazines, from what I understand, right?
Yeah. I did try it a while back. Yeah, I think there was a promotion or something, so I could get like a free month or something, and I started to use it, and it was pretty great. But I'm not really a magazine reader, so I couldn't care less really. So I haven't really consumed much media out of it. But over 1 or 2 days, I tried a couple of magazines, tried the download feature and such, and also the subscription. So I was able to subscribe to a magazine. So whenever a new issue would come out, I would get a notification. So that was all pretty well done. So for people who are reading magazines, it's a way to get all your magazines with you when you travel. So you don't need to bring a stash of magazines in your suitcase. So it was a great idea. But it really is targeted towards people who already are avid magazine reader. And since I was not, it wasn't really too for me. Do you think this is going to replace Newsstand? Is it still there, Newsstand?
No, that's what I got from all this news. Is Newsstand doesn't exist anymore. I didn't even know.
Oh, okay. So they're replacing a service and format that was popularized by independent publishers with a service that is now full of big corporate publishers. That's interesting. Maybe they're going to add on top of these magazines the independent publishers. That could also be a way to do it. But I don't think we're going to see that happen soon. Mainly the reason is this whole system and service is like standalone, and they need to integrate it into the Apple ecosystem somehow in terms of all the back end and the publishing and everything. So hopefully they don't tie that to iTunes Connect because that's not nice. But yeah, hopefully they might leverage this backend to become the new Apple backend for subscriptions and some other services that they offer. So that could be a very interesting way to approach this. Maybe one of their key features was that they had an excellent backend where publishers could add magazines and send notifications and all of that quite easily. So that could be one of the reasons why they acquired this software.
So Newsstand was discontinued with 8.4.1.
I never realized that.
Yeah, so in 2015.
Okay. Well, yeah. You can say I wasn't really reading Newsstand stuff either.
No, me neither. It's just I saw it on Twitter when they said they were buying Texture. People are saying, wait a second, don't they have Newsstand? And then other people are saying, no, actually, Newsstand has been discontinued since iOS 8. Wow.
Moving on, we have finally the dates. Finally, we know when WWDC is happening. It's going to be in San Jose again on June 4th.
San Jose.
San Jose.
In French?
Yeah, it's hard sometimes switching languages.
I never heard it like that in French.
Yeah, because also there's Jose, which is more Spanish. And
right. You were like half.
Yeah, I'm a quarter of everything. So
yeah, that's it.
It was going to be from June 4th to June 8th. So I'm guessing that hotels are probably ringing all their phones with all people trying to get some reservations for rooms and everything. And tickets will be offered randomly. Afterwards, after the registration was going to open on Thursday, March 22nd at 10 a.m. PDT as usual. So
It's going to close. It's going to close on March 22nd.
Oh yeah, close on March. Sorry, yeah. You can buy tickets now, but the draw will come afterwards. Yeah,
right.
As
and
usual.
If you put your hat in the draw, you have to buy the tickets. I always want to put my hat in the draw just to see if I win, and then it's like, okay, no thanks. But you have to buy. You have to put your credit card. You have to be ready.
Yeah, exactly. The only way that you can like skip if it's the charge is refused and you leave it like that and you don't try to resolve it. That's the only way you can skip. But otherwise, you have to agree to pay for it.
Also, along with WWDC, RelayFM announced a big, how do they call it?
RelayCon? No,
it's not RelayCon. It's like a podcast festival. It's in partnership with AltConf and ATP. So there's going to be a like Relay Connected Live. It's another podcast, and a ATP Live, all recorded live with at the AltConf conference. The tickets are, I think, $5, and all the benefits are going to AltConf, since AltConf is free normally. So if you like podcasts and you listen to podcasts and
pretty nice,
you're listening to this and you go to WWDC, you should put your tickets for that. We'll put the link in the show notes. It's a pretty cool event.
Yeah, it's pretty great. Yeah, like you said, it's basically free to attend the conference, but there's a supporting amount you can put. They suggest $50, but you can put whatever you want. And there's also a guaranteed entry if you pay $300 and $5 for each of the podcast show. One for ATP, one for Relay. So that's pretty nice.
Other than that, what do you think about? Are you reading anything into the like the artwork that they use for WWDC?
Well, the only thing I can see is that everything comes together. So is it going to be the Marzipan? Yeah, the Marzipan project. Some, if not something available, something announced or a beta or something. Or they could also do it like start with a new SDK that is very minimal. So they have only like the basic UI elements. And over time, they add more and more every couple of months, kind of like they do with Swift. Every month, there's new features or new changes that are applied. So this could be a way that they progressively roll out a new SDK that is both compatible with iOS and macOS. And I would love if there would be like an Xcode for iPad, because this is exactly the time where you can redesign your tools, your tool chain, to be able to use the iPad Pro as a dev machine. So given that most of what they are redoing can work on both platforms, you could theoretically preview the results on an iPad and on a Mac. So you could have Xcode for iPad, which would be amazing, which would also help a lot new developers, because the price to entry for developing iOS or macOS app is not going to be $1,000 computer anymore. It could be maybe a $300 iPad if ever it works on the regular iPad. Maybe more features or faster on the iPad Pro, but it should probably work also on the regular iPad. So that would be quite interesting to be able to build an app, publish it from a $300 device. So that's what I read from it. I haven't looked at every single element on the page, so I don't know if there's something that I missed. But for me, basically, it's everything comes together. So it's going to be probably the underlying theme of the event.
Look at like the page. It's like if they put all the elements on the Panobook.
Yeah, exactly. True.
That's the only thing I noticed.
Yeah, but the guys will complain that it's not the same gray.
Yeah, it's not the right dots.
Yeah, close, but not perfect. Imagine if there were little square arrows here and there to demonstrate like an iPhone layout or something. That would be amazing.
Yeah, like the little cues that they have there on the Panobook to draw 3 screens.
That would be nice. So other than that, we got another announcement. So Apple will be planning a field trip event in Chicago. So this time it's not going to be a regular Apple event as we know them. It's going to be based for education. So it's going to be, we don't have any details from Apple officially, but it's mostly a smaller event. with probably a different tone, not a marketing push, marketing like announcement, but mostly like probably more like an event where they're gonna accompany you to show you the new features and how you can integrate them into your classrooms. So they might have an event and maybe also some sessions afterwards to probably better use the new features coming up. So in terms of new features, new devices, what do you think there's going to be announced in that event?
New iPad,
It makes sense. A cheaper one, the one that we heard last week.
right? You think maybe a new pencil
That would make sense also. But
for
maybe
all iPads?
so there would be so pencil compatibility with all iPads. So that would be amazing though. Yeah.
Yeah, because I can't. They can't release a new iPad, a new pencil, and then not make it work for like people who just bought an iPad Pro.
Yeah, and also you cannot ask a school to purchase $1,000 iPad just to use a pencil. So they are always trying to get the cheapest devices, and that's why so many schools still have iPad 2s, because that was the cheapest iPad available for such a long time. So now a new iPad that's now cheaper, maybe $199 would be like the sweet spot. That's like we did explain in previous episodes. That's the price point. Whereas you can see in the marketing, sales increase exponentially once you go down to $199. So that's the sweet spot if you want. So if they can aim and get to that point for a brand new iPad with modern day specs and pencil support, that would be crazy. I think it's going to be too cheap, so probably more like $299 or $275 or something like that. Maybe some kind of deal if you buy many, if you're a school. But other than that, I think we also might going to see software features. Like, recently there were parents and school boards complaining about the lack of features for parental control in the iPad, not related to buying content, but related to the use of the device. So they wanted Apple to implement new features to cover screen time and also different profiles. Like, yes, you can use the iPad for school, but you cannot use it to play Angry Birds, for example. So you would be able to flip switch to turn off games, but turn on the internet, but not social media or whatever. So they were asking for Apple to implement such features. So what I'm thinking is that since they already have a bunch of features that are similar to that for education purposes, they might start integrate those features into the same UI and same tools that they have right now for education, and eventually they might trickle down to the regular iOS release. So that's one thing we might see at this event, I think.
And probably 11.3 also. They've been releasing betas of 11.3 for the past month or so for developers. So I guess we're going to see the official release, maybe a little recap of what the new features are, and hopefully we'll see AirPlay 2.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be too much concentrated on new features. They kept on removing stuff from 11.3 over the last couple of betas, so I'm not sure what's left in there to be released. So yeah, we'll have to see. Yeah, so that's one thing. I don't think we're going to see any like Air Power Mat or iPhone SE, because that's not really the event for that. Worst case, these things get a press release like a week later, and that's it.
Because it was already like demonstrated on stage or talked about on stage, so it'd be weird to talk about it again and say it's released. Well, I guess they do that for a lot of things, but we'll see.
Yeah, but it has to fit. Like if they do an event right this March 27th in Chicago, and it's mostly for teachers and students and everything, I don't think it's gonna be really oriented for new devices unless it's a device that is specifically made for schools. Like the pen could work, a cheaper iPad would make sense, but AirPower, no school is going to buy an AirPower mat. You don't leave your device on your desk when you go like outside or whatever, so it doesn't really make sense unless they slip it in as a press release maybe a few hours earlier, and then they just mention it like on the slide, and that's it. That could also be the case, but I don't think we're going to see the usual announcement of a new device release as we saw in the past.
And this is next Tuesday.
Yep, March 27th at 10 a.m.
In 2 weeks. In 2 weeks.
Yeah.
It looks like they had one of these in in New York or something a bunch of years ago.
Yeah, they did. Yeah, they announced, I think it was iBooks or iBooks Author. I'm not really sure. So they did mention that there was a big push on all the get all your your class books into a virtual form. So they would partner with a bunch of editors to get those books into the iPad. So you don't need to bring up like 5 super heavy books every day. You only have your iPad and everything's in there. You can also take notes. You can do margin notes. You can highlight stuff. So that was the big push for that. But I don't think there was much more than that. I think it was really like the app and their partnering. And I think there was also a couple slides about pricing where they would lower the price because there's less spending to be done because it's all virtual now. But I think that was it. I don't think there was any announcement for devices. Yeah.
There was a new Apple TV, a 3rd generation Apple TV.
At this event?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, that's weird. Well, yeah, it makes sense because oftentimes in schools you need to project, and Apple TV is a way to do that. So that would make sense too. Okay. All right. So our favorite developer _ David Smith basically published numbers from his Workouts ++ app and Pedometer ++ app regarding the adoption and the different generations of watches.
Oh wait, there was the iPad 3 also, the famous iPad 3 that had a like this super short life there. That had a 30-pin connector
and Retina screen 3D-pin connector. Yeah,
that lasted like 6 months or something.
I think it was in like 4 months.
Oh yeah, that's it. Release date March 16th. Discontinued October 23rd.
Oh, still 7 months. 6 months. Yeah, 6 months. Still.
Okay, yeah. So _ release up his numbers for Apple Watch. It's a famous _ like release. It's always like this. It's based around a bunch of numbers, and he basically talks about his numbers. It looks all like a school a school project, like when you had a lab and you had to take numbers down and then explain your numbers in a little text. It's the same thing, but with his Apple Watch numbers. So what are the key points? Apple Watch Series 3 is now overtaken and is the most popular, and he hopes that the Series 0 is going to be dropped from iOS 12, like at WWDC is going to be dropped, so he can but just if he targets iOS 12, he doesn't have to support the Series 0, which is a bit painful if you still have a Series 0.
Yeah, but then again, like with any other devices, it makes sense at one point to just drop the support, because otherwise, like you cannot continue to support older apps like that. Maybe with WatchKit that we have right now, the way it's so limited, it can still make sense to support it because there's so few things you can do voluntarily. Like most of the event or most of what happens is very limited and system constrained. So you could probably still support it, but if ever there's a new WatchKit coming up, maybe with Marzipan, maybe something else, and it's really more aggressive in terms of features and in terms of events, what can trigger an event and trigger like a sync, or if you want to force a sync or force a refresh, that won't work with a Series 0. You're going to kill the battery so fast, and also you're going to just slow down the whole thing because it's going to too many events in the background means a slower watch. So, but at one point you need to cut some slack because those CPUs from the Series 0 versus the Series 3 is such like a day and night in terms of performance that you need to look ahead and not backwards. But I do understand that for most of people who have a Series 0, still works fine. You just want it to continue to work. So I don't know how this is going to happen because people change their phone historically every 2 years because they had contracts. Now the contracts are mostly gone around the world, so it's mostly 3 years. I think the numbers. iPad, they say it's about 4 to 5 years, but Apple Watches, we don't have any data for that yet. So maybe Apple has data that people have been replacing their watch every 2 years, every 3 years, but there must be a big number of people that still are on the Series Zero, especially if you bought like the stainless steel one that was $1,000. You don't want to replace that every year. So it's special. I don't know how they're gonna approach that, but it's gonna be interesting to see how everybody reacts to this.
Yeah, and like the Series 1 is dramatically faster than the Series 0. I was using one of Underscore's apps this morning, Sleep Plus Plus, and when you finish sleeping, you have to hit stop sleeping, and it analyzes your sleep and it sends it over to your iPhone. It was like it took a second, and I remember with my Series 0, it would take a couple minutes, or I'd have to hit it multiple times, or even a couple times I hit start sleep, but I didn't wait for it to actually start, and I missed my whole night of sleep. So like it's crazy how much more responsive the Watch Series 1 is.
That's why I'm not sure how they're gonna present that, like how they're gonna phase out this Series 0 or allow you to target iOS 12 and that won't be working with your watch. I don't know. It's still a lot of unknowns, but at one point they need to do something about that because they don't want to be in the same iPad 2 situation as they had before and keep on selling this iPad for way too long, and they are now stuck into a loop where they have to support it for a couple more years, and they don't like you to target devices because they want your apps to work on every device. So it's always like a balance exercise of trying to push features but also not prevent older devices from supporting them. So it's a balancing act that is very hard to do.
Right.
So on the iMac Pro side, no new device, no new updates for that. We just have a bunch of films by a couple of artists. Apple put up a little page where they showcase the iMac Pro and how it's been used to make movies. So they are basically 6 artists who made 6 short films. You can see in the show notes there's a link to each and every of those little videos. It's mostly composited images, like computer-generated graphics and stuff like that. So it's pretty interesting to see what they did. And for each of them, there's also a behind-the-scenes video. So most of them are actually like using complex calculation to generate buildings and people and animation and stuff like that. So, and they explain exactly how the iMac Pro allowed them to work better, faster, more efficiently, and iterate more often. Because if you remember years back when you wanted to render a scene, it could take 24 hours. Like those Pixar movies, when they were trying to render a scene, not even a movie, but just a scene, it could take 24 hours. So if you do the render and then you realize that there's a problem, you just lost a day. So with a fast machine like the iMac Pro, if your render can take like 10 seconds instead of 4 minutes, and you do 50 edits per day, then you just save yourself like 3 hours of time. So it's all those little things that you don't think it really matters, because previous iMacs were fast. The iMac Pro is fast. The Mac Pro, sorry, what is fast. But when it's even faster, that's when you realize that you can change the way that you work, and it's okay to iterate often and more. So imagine if you were compiling a software or work on a website and you only were able to hit refresh every 5 minutes. That would be a pain to do. That's why we can iterate fast on the web, because you can do just refresh a couple times per minute and you see the results instantaneously. So I think that's the kind of power that is being applied to video making and cinematography and CG artists. So that's pretty interesting to see.
I wonder though if, like, how much faster is it, but how much better the quality of the image, or since it's easier to do, like, do they use better assets and they make the films better? I wonder what that curve is. Like what's moving faster, like the quality of the picture or the speed of the computers, and how do they manage that? Because they can just throw bigger assets at it and it's going to take as much time as it used to take. So what's the middle point?
Well, of course, if you just keep the same assets, everything will be faster and could probably be even rendered in real time. That's usually what you aim for. But your final version with all the reflection, the light effects and everything, that might not be real time, especially if you do this in 4K. So that's where you probably will have the same waiting period as you had before. But still, if you can work your way with a subset of those rendered elements, then you can still work faster. So it's always a balancing act. Once again, like, you can increase the quality, but it's going to increase also the time to render. So you have to find your sweet spot. Like people prefer to put a little bit more rendering, so that it takes a bit more time, but they have a better grasp of what the end result will be. And other people are used to those different types of scenes that they can work with lower quality assets, and they can work in real time. And then when they're done, you just hit render, and the whole thing is perfect. So it's a matter of preference. And these guys are artists, so they have their little quirks and how they prefer to work. But like you said, of course, if you crank out all the assets, it's going to take as much time or even more than before. So then we got a little commercial that you sent me.
Yeah, so I think they call it Unlock. It's just a commercial promoting Face ID, I guess. The girl walks around her school or a school, and she unlocks absolutely everything with her face, from lockers and everything opens just by her like paying attention or giving, like looking at anything. So it's a pretty cool commercial. Like, you see, like I relate more to this commercial than the HomePod one.
Yeah, I can see why.
I know the other one is like more artistic, but I like this one because like everything that she opens with her eyes explodes, or when she opens lockers, all the stuff comes out. And I just imagine, like, how do you do this? And she opens like stuff in a arts and crafts class or something, and like the paint is everywhere, and I just can't imagine how they managed to do this. Or like, okay, let's do it again. What do you mean do it again? We have to clean up and do it again? Yeah, clean up, lock everything up, and we'll make everything explode again. Okay.
Yeah, I don't think they do many takes for that. I think they really prepare. They do the whole thing like 50 times, and then they do a single one where they explode everything. I remember also there was a musical group who did a music video where they had something like that. They had like a bunch of paints going around, and liquid paints and like a fume of paints and everything. And it was, I think, in slow motion, but they had to synchronize it with the song, but like in slow motion. So it was very complex, and like they managed to do it like, I think, in one take, but it takes like days and days of preparation. And I don't know if there was a lot of editing going around, but like if they really did it in single take, it's amazing. So, but yeah, this commercial is interesting. And you also pointed me to at the end where she receives a text from her friend, and it asks, hey, on the first line, then there's a blank line, and then where are you? And you made me realize that there's a bug in iOS where if you receive a longer text message, you see the bubble with the text overflowing the bubble, and then the bubble grows to capture the text if you want. And they actually advertise that into the ad itself, which is problematic because that's, for me...
No, they didn't advertise it. It's in the ad.
Yeah, but
they didn't advertise like, hey, look, it doesn't work, or feature.
No, I know, but they approved it for the ad.
Right.
They could have said like a different message or put it a one-liner, and that would be okay. But instead they said, no, we'll put this message on 2 lines, and it'll grow, and it's going to look weird, but that's how it is. So that makes you wonder, like, is that like intended behavior, or is it really a bug?
Yeah, because it's a feature on the iPhone 10 is when all the messages on your lock screen, only the name of the person that sent you the message appears. And then when you look at it, so unlock it, like the bubble expands and shows you the message. So the text is displayed before the bubble expands, so it looks awful. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. And this was pointed out by Benjamin Mayo.
Mayo, yeah.
Mayo. He's a writer for 9 to 5 Mac, and he filed a radar in November for this. And he has a little video also in his tweet from the 6th of November 2017, and hasn't been fixed, and now they have a commercial promoting or showing it.
Yeah, so that tells me it will never get fixed. That's like the intended behavior, I think. It's not a bug, it's a feature.
Yeah, the text should appear as the animation of the bubble comes down, but I guess we don't get that.
Yeah, that's very weird. All right, nice little commercial. Links will be in the show notes if you want to listen to this little commercial. Moving on to a bit of information which we rarely have. If you remember months ago where we had the San Bernardino case where the shooter had an iPhone and FBI tried to win over Apple in court to get some special version of iOS that can be unlockable, or to force Apple to unlock the shooter's device, because there was supposedly information on the device that could help, I don't know what. Basically, it's a big kerfuffle in the courts, and basically Apple was able to stand ground and not be forced to reveal anything or to make a special low security version of iOS. Since then, there were companies who offered services to basically unlock devices, remove passcodes, or basically just siphon all the data from the phone to a computer, even though the phone was locked. So there was a bunch of solutions. There's a bunch of companies, namely Celebrite, which is, I think it's an Israeli company who now has offices in the States, where you can send the device to them for $5,000, and they basically unlock it and send you the data back with the device. So that's one way to do it. Over time, these services change because they often rely on bugs and iOS problems or security bugs that eventually are getting fixed. So it's always like a cat and mouse game, trying to find a new bug to be exploited. But now this day, we have a very special look inside how these things really work. So basically, Malwarebytes Labs basically posted a blog post detailing how the gray box works. Gray box is a box you can, I don't know if you can buy or rent, but basically you can have access to it and pay a price per device, and you just plug in your iPhone into this box. This box is a gray box, as the name implies, with two lightning cables coming out, with just LEDs of status LEDs and a LED on top of each cable. You plug your phone and you wait. If it's a 4-digit code, it can take a couple minutes to unlock, and then you'll get a screen that's a very minimal black screen that says found passcode, and it lists passcode. If your passcode is 6 digits, it can take a couple hours. If it's alphanumeric, it can take a couple days. But basically, it has a way of trying, like brute force, trying every combination possible without triggering the you have to wait an hour, 4 hours, 16 hours to unlock message. So that's what the box does. And once you're done and you have access to the device, you can hook the little box to a computer, where you have a little resume of the phone versions and everything, UID, and there you can download an iTunes backup of the phone, or you can download the full system. So they compare it like a iTunes backup is about 100 megs and the full system is 3.1 gigs. So that's I think they charge $15 for with internet connectivity. So I don't know what's the plan there. No, the box download software over the internet, or maybe new ways to hack the device. Or there's also a $30,000 option, where you don't need any internet connection and you can do an unlimited number of unlocks. I'm guessing until whatever bug they're using is basically dead. So it's quite expensive, but for what they do, it's quite hard, I would say, as a company to provide those kinds of services. We don't have much details on exactly how it works. I'm guessing that once you plug your phone into the box, it basically jailbreaks the phone and installs some software to basically try all the combination possible to get the passcode, and expose also the file system. So that's what I think it's doing. We don't have much details. All this information usually is under NDAs, so you're not allowed to reveal that specific information. Somebody basically did reveal all the information. That's why we have this article today, and it's quite interesting to see how it works with pictures and everything. So yeah, it's very interesting.
I didn't see this. Where did you find this?
Where did I find this? I think it was on Engadget. They linked to it.
Okay.
It's not the first solution. There was one in the past, in the days of iOS 8, which was the IP Box 2, which was a bunch of PCBs with special cables and everything, where you could hook it to your iPhone and it would try to do something. And that was weird, but it was working. But those things usually rely on either hardware or software vulnerability. And every major version, there's like dozens, if not hundreds of those that are patched. So it's not hard to understand that whatever you think you purchase will not be usable for more than 6 months to a year. After that, especially if the person owning the device did all the updates, you can be almost sure that whatever money you invest in those services will be nullified in the coming months. So that's why the GrayKey is interesting, because they offer a $15,000 service with internet connection where they probably download new ways or new vulnerability to exploit over the internet, so that whatever price you pay for a device, you might always have something that you can use, basically.
It's a bit scary.
Yeah, well, the implications are quite dangerous, because it all comes down to a surveillance state. It all comes down to what is really private and not private. And of course, people will say that, okay, well, if it's for perpetrators of criminal acts, then they should lose their rights of privacy. But you cannot lose your rights of privacy for a single device. It's either everyone or no one. So that's why it's not one of those thing you can do halfway and say it's okay, we have a proper setup that only these people don't have privacy, but the rest of the population will have private data. So it's quite the implications are big. So, and of course, right now this thing works, but like in 2 months we can have like 11.3 release, and all those bugs will be patched, and they'll need to find other ones. So I'm guessing that there's always a period during the year that they might not have a working solution, that they have to rush and try to find a new one. So in time for Pi Day, so March 14th, we have a new Raspberry Pi that's released. The regular Raspberry Pi 3 Model B, the big one, the one that everybody looks at when you think of a Raspberry Pi, has got a new hardware release. So it's the Plus model. So this one basically has a more powerful quad core chip, and also a faster Wi-Fi. So that's going to be very important for people trying to stream like video over Wi-Fi. And that's one of the features that this little thing was kind of constrained. It also adds Bluetooth 4.2 and Bluetooth Low Energy. So you can probably guess that you'll see a bunch of tutorials making Raspberry Pi smart devices even better, just because of the low energy. So you can probably hook a little battery on that and have it run for a long time. And also, the last thing that is quite interesting with this release is that they are now officially supporting the power over internet. This is very important because normally, let's say you put security cameras or you put like any smart device somewhere, it's hard to have both a wired internet and a wired power source. So power over Ethernet is a way that security cameras have been using for many years to make a power level so low that just the power that can be provided by this Ethernet cable is enough to power the device. And this comes to the Raspberry Pi. So expect in the coming weeks or months a little Pi hat, which will be a attachment module that you add to your Raspberry Pi that can allow you to simply have a single Ethernet connected port, and that will power the device and also offer data connectivity. So all that through a single wire. So it's going to be perfect, of course, for security cameras and also other smart devices that have some kind of sensors that need to report on maybe temperature or lights or whatever. Maybe also outside, because with the low voltage of Ethernet cables, there's no real danger of electrocution and stuff like that. So it's perfect for also your outside needs.
For security cameras, it'd be pretty cool.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's the main use, I think. That's what most people are using. Also, Ethernet cable is cheap and it's easier to connect, and you can also cut it the length you need, and you can also have special heads that are waterproof. So it all makes sense. And finally, we have a tour of the factory of the Hasselblad company. This is the Sweden company that makes those $10,000 cameras and $2,000 lens. Basically, the Verge sent Vlad Savov to Gothenburg, Sweden, to visit the factory. I don't think you can call this a factory because it's so small. It looks more like a primary school than anything else. It really is like super small. I think it's like 3 floors only. And basically, there's only 1 floor that is dust resistant, and the rest are like offices. And what's very impressive is the technology they use, like they make those super expensive cameras that have like a sensor that is medium format that is super huge. But then again, everything is like done manually, and there's even the technology in there. Like there's no assembly line. It's all made by hand by humans, and they all run like diagnostic PCs with Windows XP on it. And it's very impressive to see how low tech this company is for such a high tech camera. So it's very interesting to see. And the most surprising thing that I saw on this article is the way that they calibrate the sensor, because every sensor usually comes from Sony nowadays, except I think Canon, they still make their own sensors, but I think even Nikon, they moved to Sony sensors. And this exact same sensor that is in the Hasselblad X1D is also in the Fujifilm GFX 50S. So it's the very same sensor, but the difference why those two cameras provide different quality of photos is the time they want to put in to calibration. So that's where really Hasselblad shines, is that instead of spending, let's say, a random number, like let's say 2 weeks of calibration, they might spend like 6 months like on a new sensor to calibrate it. And that is what makes it the difference. So it's really the time they decide to put in that makes the difference. And how once they get a new sensor, they make a new camera and it's perfect. How do they make sure that every subsequent camera is also calibrated the same? Well, it's not complicated. They have gold label sensors. So they have existing cameras on their desk, which are considered perfect. And that's the reference point that they have to put against the new cameras. So they take pictures with the old cameras and the new cameras, and they compare the photos until they are sufficiently similar that they pass the calibration phase. So that's impressive that it does not rely on any software or any like technology to calibrate that. They basically just use an older camera that is now a couple of years old, and that is considered like a gold standard, basically. So it's a pretty interesting.
And also, I didn't know Hasselblad is like they took all the pictures in space and all that. They have like a bunch of famous pictures.
Yeah, they've been there for how many years? Maybe more than 100, probably more than that. So they've been there for a long time, and it's very impressive.
It was founded in 1841, so 177 years.
Yeah, so it's an old company. And what's also different about this company is that their cameras, they don't have the shutter in the camera. Basically, it's in the lens. So they have, instead of having like a flip up mirror like many DSLR have, these have basically just the aperture blades that are opening and closing, and that's what your shutter is. And it's inside the lens instead of the body. So that's also a different way to do it. But yeah, it's very interesting to see this little trip inside their factory and the way they align all the cameras, and every camera is tested, and then there's a little paperwork that is attached to the camera, and that says like who reviewed it and who tested what, and then at the end, like it gets cleaned up manually, and then it gets polished and everything, and then it gets boxed. So it's pretty impressive.
Have you ever seen one or held one?
Never. Well, I've seen one. It's not true. I was at Lozo, which is a Photoshop
Camera shop
in Montreal, yeah, and I think they had one on display, but I didn't take it into my hands, so that was years ago. But yeah, the new one, the X1D, is so popular that they usually only make about 10,000 per year, but I think that they now have to make more and more, because when the Engadget, the Verge reporter went to the factory, like that's all they were assembling. Like everybody was on this single model. So I think that they maybe are more popular than they thought they would be. So they probably will need to hire more people.
It's 51 megapixels.
Yeah, medium format sensor. So it's,
medium is bigger than full frame.
Yeah, it's bigger. It's about twice as big.
Okay.
So it's a good like almost 2-inch diagonal, 1.5 inches. It's pretty intense, but you can get crazy photos with that. But like they said, like the strength of Hasselblad is all the calibration they put into their sensor, because the end result, once you get that raw picture out, it's so nice that you rarely have to do any change to it. It's so impressive that way. Moving on to Rumour Corner. We only have a single rumor this week. This comes from a post that we saw on Apple Insider, which is coming from a Taiwanese report from the Chinese Economic Daily News that says that there are not going to be any new iPhone in the first half of 2018. So the iPhone SE2 that we are expecting, that many rumors are saying should come soon, they said that it's not going to happen. And we also are going to receive a new 11-inch iPad with Face ID and no home button. So that's how they can grow the screen from 10-inch to 11-inch, because they don't have any home button anymore. So what do you think of those rumors?
I don't care.
You don't care?
No, I really like to see an SE with like Face ID and all that. We had like rumor shots this week, but people said they were fake there. But I'd really like to see like Face ID everywhere, and especially in that super small form factor. I have a lot of friends that still use that. An SE, or even I have a couple friends that still use a 5S, and they don't want to change because they find the 7 is too big, or the 6 size is too big. And Face ID for iPad also, because I don't know how we use like Touch ID on the iPad still, and the home button for me is so old right now. So switch everything, please, now.
Yeah, it would make sense. I don't know. They don't. It's gonna say they say it's gonna be an 11-inch Pro. So I'm not too sure about those sizes, because it's 10.5, 11-inch, 12.9. It gets weird. But yeah, I agree that especially for those big iPads, there's lots of place. You can put those sensors, no problem, and still have ample room around the bezel to put your fingers. You don't need to do like a bezel-less design, because you need to hold the tablet, so you need the place to put your fingers. So I don't think a bezel-less is the best for the iPad, but you can also change the size to remove the home button and have something that is more symmetrical on the top and sides. So that would work for me. But yeah, I think that the iPhone SE2 should come out, because there's so many people that are just waiting for that to change their devices. And like you said, some people love the format. I understand it fits well in your hand. If you don't need any big screen for whatever reason, because you don't need to watch videos or whatever, the device is perfect, and it's pocketable much more than any other iPhone out there. So yeah, there should be a new version for sure. So at the same time, Apple Insider says that this magazine does not have a good track record for rumors. So maybe this could all be just bogus stuff, and we could have an iPhone SE and no iPad 11-inch. So
Yeah, I guess we might be stop being a rumor, and we'll have the release in the next 2 weeks there at the Apple event.
That could be it. Also, yeah, could be just a simple slide, just hardware refresh, iPhone SE2, same design, same thing, just new CPU and same home button, same home touch ID on the home button. Or we could have like a new version that has the Face ID, but I don't think they're gonna push Face ID on the iPhone SE before all of the other iPhones have it. So
right, you're right. That would make no sense. Well, not a lot of sense.
Unless like maybe next year. So this year, like in September, we'll have new iPhone 9s and 9 Plus with the Face ID, perhaps. And then the following year, we could get the iPhone SE3 with the Face ID, but not before. But still, new cameras, better, maybe OLED screen. That could be something, because it's so small. They could fit an OLED screen there probably with no problem. Better battery life. Perhaps maybe even Touch ID 3. I don't know. Just throwing this out there. But yeah, there's plenty of ways that the iPhone SE can be upgraded. So, all right, so that's it for this show. You can find the show notes at rgba.fm/83. You can find us on Twitter at @_RGBAfm. I am on Twitter at Vallier, VALLIERES.
And I'm Tyler Menard, TYLERMENARD.
Have a nice week.
Have a nice week.